nobody warned you about this growing up. And by the time you realize it, the damage is already done. Some people don't destroy your life by attacking you. They destroy it by letting you try to save them. And the most dangerous ones, they never look like villains. They look like someone who just needs one more chance. When you were young, they told you simple rules for life. Help people, be kind, be the good guy. They taught you to show up, to listen, to give, to sacrifice. They told you that being a good person would protect you. But no one ever warned you about the darker side of that advice. What they didn't tell you is that some people will slowly destroy your life the moment you try to save theirs. And the scary part is this: they don't look dangerous. They look broken. They look lost. They look like someone who just needs understanding, patience, or one last opportunity. I learned this the hard way. I lost time. I lost energy. I lost peace. And I came dangerously close to losing my self-respect, all while trying to fix people who never wanted to change in the first place. So, if you're the type of person who always shows up, if you're the one who always listens, if you're the one who keeps sacrificing yourself to keep others comfortable, this video might offend you, but it might also save you years of your life. Because today, we're talking about dangerous people. People who will quietly destroy you if you try to help them. Number 1, the secret competitor. This is one of the most dangerous people you'll ever try to help. Because they don't look like an enemy. They look like a friend. They sound supportive. They nod along. They encourage you. They ask about your plans, your goals, your next move. But deep down, they're keeping score. The secret competitor is someone who asks for your help while silently resenting you for being ahead, or even just for trying to move forward. They'll say things like, "Bro, I'm proud of you. Yeah man, go for it. I support whatever you do." But the moment you actually start winning, something shifts. Their tone changes. Their energy feels different. The jokes get sharper, and the silence gets louder. Here's the uncomfortable truth. They don't hate you. They hate what your progress exposes inside. Most men aren't taught how to compete in a healthy way. We're taught to compare silently, suffer privately, and smile publicly. So when someone close to us starts leveling up, it forces an internal audit they never asked for. Your discipline highlights their procrastination. Your courage highlights their fear. Your consistency highlights their excuses. And instead of facing themselves, they turn you into the problem. That's why the secret competitor will happily listen to your advice, but never apply it. Because if they actually changed, they'd have no excuse left. Helping them becomes dangerous, because without realizing it, you're feeding a quiet resentment that keeps growing. They won't attack you directly. They undermine you subtly. They question your ideas just to be realistic. They bring up worst-case scenarios when you're excited. They remind you of past failures, right when you're finally moving forward. At first, you think they're being honest. You think they're grounding you. But over time, their voice becomes the one you hear in your head when you hesitate. And that's how they win, without ever beating you. I once had someone I considered a brother. We talked every day. We shared goals, dreams, and plans for the future. I gave him ideas, motivation, connections, everything I had. But the moment I started making progress faster than him, something changed. He began joking about my ambition. At first, it sounded harmless, just friendly teasing. Then he started calling my plans unrealistic. He reminded me how hard the world was, how many people fail, how rare success really is. He spoke like someone who had already accepted defeat and wanted me to do the same. At first, I laughed it off, but then I noticed something unsettling. Every time I felt confident, I talked to him and walked away doubting myself. Every time I took a step forward, he subtly pulled me back, not with force, not with insults, with concern, with realism, with fear disguised as wisdom. The moment that truly opened my eyes came when something went wrong for me. He didn't sound happy. He didn't sound supportive. He sounded relieved. That's when I realized something crucial. He wasn't competing with the world. He was competing with me. And without knowing it, I was helping him do it. This part matters. You don't confront people like this. You don't argue. You don't explain yourself. You create distance. You stop oversharing your plans. You stop seeking validation from them. You stop letting their fear influence your decisions. Not out of hate, out of self-respect, because helping someone who secretly wants to see you fail is like sharpening a knife they'll eventually use on you. Here's the hard truth most men need to hear. Not everyone who claps for you wants you to win. Not everyone who asks for help is rooting for your success. Some people need you to stay small so they can stay comfortable. And the moment you truly understand that, you stop trying to save everyone and start protecting your future. Helping people is noble, but helping at the cost of your growth is stupidity disguised as kindness. Sometimes the most powerful move isn't helping harder, it's walking away quietly and winning loudly. Number 2, the trauma addict. This person doesn't just have trauma. They live in it. They introduce themselves through it. They protect it like a personality trait. At first, you respect them for being honest, for being real. They open up fast. They tell you things they don't tell anyone else. And because you're a decent man, your instinct kicks in immediately. Let me help. Let me fix this. Let me be the one who finally understands. That's where the trap begins. The trauma addict doesn't want healing. They want validation without transformation. Trauma, when left unhealed, becomes familiar. And familiarity feels safer than change. For the trauma addict, pain is predictable. Healing is unknown, uncomfortable, and terrifying. If they let go of their trauma, they'd have to face a brutal question. Who am I without this story? So instead of processing it, they replay it. Instead of healing, they perform it. Every conversation circles back to their wounds. Every solution you offer feels like an attack on their identity. That's why they react strangely when you suggest therapy, boundaries, accountability, or structure. They don't hear help. They hear rejection of the only thing that gives them attention. Helping a trauma addict feels meaningful at first. You listen. You reassure. You absorb their pain. But here's the problem. Pain shared without direction multiplies. Over time, you become their emotional dumping ground, their therapist, their crutch. And when you're tired, when you suggest moving forward, when you mention growth, they accuse you of being cold, or of not understanding them anymore. That's when you realize something terrifying. Your peace is inconvenient to them. I once tried to help someone who had been through real, serious trauma. And I meant it. I showed up. I listened late into the night. I carried weight that was never mine to carry. But every time I suggested growth, the gym, structure, therapy, new goals, the energy shifted. Suddenly, I was rushing them. Suddenly, I was invalidating their pain. But the moment I sat quietly and let them vent, no solutions, no direction, just silence, they were comfortable, calm, relieved. And that's when it finally hit me. They didn't want a way out. They wanted a witness. And the longer I stayed in that role, the smaller I became. I stopped talking about my own problems. I stopped bringing my dreams into the room. I stopped imagining a future out loud, because trauma addicts don't have space for your future. They only have room for their past. Not all trauma survivors want to heal. Some choose to stay wounded, because wounds bring sympathy, excuses, and control. That doesn't make them evil, but it does make them dangerous to men who are trying to build something meaningful. Because while you're pulling them toward tomorrow, they're quietly pulling you back into yesterday. You don't argue with their pain. You don't minimize it. You don't turn cold or heartless. You do something far more powerful. You stop being their emotional home. You encourage professional help. You offer support with boundaries. And you refuse to relive the same story on repeat. If they resist growth, you step back. Because compassion without boundaries isn't kindness, it's self-destruction. Pay attention to patterns, not words. Do they grow after conversations, or do they stay the same? Do they take action, or do they only talk? Do they support your growth, or quietly resent your stability? If every interaction leaves you heavier, slower, and more doubtful, that's not connection. That's entanglement. As men, we're taught to endure, to carry weight, to be strong for others. But here's the truth. No one tells you. You are not required to bleed emotionally to prove you're a good man. Helping someone heal is honorable. Sacrificing your future so someone else can stay broken is not. Some people don't need your strength. They need to face their pain alone. And walking away doesn't mean you failed them. It means you finally chose not to abandon yourself. Number 3, the unhealed narcissist. This person doesn't enter your life loudly. They arrive charming, confident, magnetic. At first, they make you feel chosen. Helping them feels exciting, almost meaningful. Because they convince you that you're different, that you understand them, that you're the only one who truly gets them. And that's exactly how they hook you, the unhealed. Narcissist doesn't want help. They want supply your attention, your energy, your loyalty, your forgiveness. At the core of narcissism isn't confidence. It's unresolved shame. Deep down, the unhealed narcissist feels empty. So they build an image instead of a self. They don't regulate emotions internally. They outsource that work to you. When they feel good, it's because you're feeding them admiration. When they feel bad, it's because you failed them. That's why helping them never works. Healing would require accountability. And accountability feels like annihilation to their ego. They don't drain you immediately. They elevate you first. They praise you, mirror your values, make you feel essential, and then, slowly, they flip the script. Your boundaries become selfish. Your needs suddenly become dramatic. Your exhaustion gets labeled as weakness. You find yourself explaining things that don't need explaining, apologizing for things you didn't do, shrinking yourself just to keep the peace. And the most dangerous part of all, you mistake this slow erosion for love. I once tried to help someone everyone warned me about, but I thought I was different, smarter, stronger, more so. At first, I felt unstoppable around them. They hyped me up. They admired me. They made me feel like I was finally seen. Then came the tests, the silence, the subtle insults, the emotional withdrawals disguised as needing space. So I worked harder. I communicated more. I gave more. And somehow, no matter what I did, everything was still my fault. The moment I realized the truth was brutal. When I succeeded, they minimized it. When I struggled, they exploited it. I wasn't a partner. I was a resource. You cannot love an unhealed narcissist into becoming healthy. Your patience won't heal them. Your loyalty won't soften them. Your suffering won't save them. In fact, the more you give, the worse they become. Because narcissists don't grow through love. They grow through loss, so you stop negotiating reality. You stop defending your feelings. You stop explaining obvious boundaries. You detach. Not dramatically, not angrily, calmly, firmly, completely. Because staying isn't noble. It's participation in your own erosion. Watch behavior, not charm. Do they respect your no? Do they take responsibility? Do they apologize without flipping the blame? If accountability never sticks, nothing else will. A lot of men stay because they think endurance equals strength. It doesn't. Strength is knowing when your presence is being weaponized against you. You are not weak for walking away. You are wise. Some people don't need your love. They need to face themselves without you cushioning the fall. And the moment you leave, something strange happens. They don't collapse. You rise. Number 4. The ego in disguise. This person doesn't look arrogant. They don't brag. They don't dominate conversations. They don't openly dismiss you. In fact, they do the opposite. They ask for advice. They lean in. They nod thoughtfully. They say things like, "That's interesting. I've never thought about it that way." And for a moment, you think, finally, someone who actually wants to grow. But here's the truth. Most men learn too late. They're not listening to learn. They're listening to respond. The ego in disguise isn't loud, because loud egos get challenged. This ego learned to survive by appearing humble. They've mastered the art of seeming open-minded while protecting their self-image at all costs. They don't want truth. They want confirmation that they're already right. That's why every piece of advice turns into a debate. Every suggestion becomes a philosophical discussion. Every solution gets buried under context until it loses all power. Helping them feels intelligent at first, until you realize nothing ever changes. They don't argue aggressively. They wear you down politely. They'll say, "Yeah, but..." I hear you, however. That might work for some people, but at first, you enjoy the back and forth. You think it's a healthy exchange. But slowly, something becomes clear. They never apply anything. They never take responsibility. They never move. They just keep talking. And the more you explain, the more exhausted you become. I once tried to help someone who sounded intelligent, well-read, articulate, and curious. They came to me with problems, asked for my thoughts, then dismantled every suggestion like it was a debate tournament. At first, I respected it. Months went by. The same problems, the same conversations. Nothing changed except my patience. One day, I stopped offering solutions. And something interesting happened. The conversations stopped too. That's when an uncomfortable realization hit me. They never wanted growth. They wanted stimulation for their ego. I wasn't a mentor. I was a mirror. Some people use intelligence as armor. They hide behind words, nuance, and complexity to avoid action. Because action risks failure, and failure threatens the image they're desperately protecting. So they stay stuck, but feel superior doing it. Helping them becomes dangerous because they make inaction feel like wisdom, so you stop you stop debating, you stop trying to convince. Instead, you ask one simple question: what are you going to do differently this week? If there's no answer, you disengage, because growth doesn't argue, it moves. Pay attention to outcomes, not intellect. Are they changing or just talking? Are they executing or endlessly theorizing? Are they improving or intellectualizing stagnation? If conversations feel smart but lives stay the same, that's ego wearing a suit. A lot of men get trapped here because we respect intelligence. But here's the hard truth. Wisdom without action is just ego with a vocabulary. Helping someone who refuses to act doesn't make you generous. It makes you a volunteer audience. Your job isn't to convince grown adults to evolve. Your job is to build a life that doesn't require their approval. And the moment you stop explaining yourself to people who never intended to change, something powerful happens. You get your energy back. Number 5, the manipulative, helpless one. This person never says, "I need control." They say things like, "I can't do this without you. You're the only one I trust. I don't know what I'd do if you left." And if you're a man with a protector instinct, that sentence hits like a mission. So you step in, you help. You carry Dotton slowly, without realizing it. You stop being a partner and become a life support system. The manipulative, helpless one doesn't look dangerous because they don't act powerful. They act incapable. Helplessness can be a strategy. Some people learned early that weakness gets attention faster than strength. They discovered that if they appear fragile enough, someone else will step in and handle life for them. So instead of developing skills, confidence, or independence, they perfected need. And here's the uncomfortable truth: they don't want to become capable, because capability would cost them control over you. They don't demand help. They suggest disaster if you don't provide it. They panic when you pull back. They collapse when you set boundaries. They accuse you of changing when you grow. And the moment you say, "You can do this yourself," they make you feel cruel for believing in them. That's the manipulation. They turn your strength into obligation, your kindness into guilt, your presence into a requirement. I once tried to help someone who always seemed overwhelmed. Life was always too much. Decisions felt impossible. Every small step required reassurance. At first, I felt needed, important, valuable. Then, I noticed something unsettling. The more I helped, the less they tried. They stopped making decisions. They stopped taking risks. They stopped growing. And whenever I pulled back even slightly, they panicked. Not because they loved me, but because they were losing their support system. That's when it clicked. They weren't helpless. They were comfortable. Not all helplessness is real. Some of it is learned dependence. And helping someone who refuses to build strength doesn't make you compassionate. It makes you complicit in their stagnation. Worse, it slowly trains you to live smaller because their fragility can't survive your growth. They don't sabotage you directly. They exhaust you. You're always on call, always fixing, always explaining, always calming. Your dreams get postponed. Your energy gets drained. Your ambition starts to feel selfish. And one day, you wake up realizing you've built someone else's comfort at the cost of your own future. So, you stop rescuing. You offer guidance, not execution. Support, not sacrifice. Encouragement, not dependency. And when they resist independence, you step back. Because anyone who collapses the moment you stop carrying them was never walking beside you to begin with. Ask yourself a few hard questions. Do they grow when I help, or do they shrink? Do they take responsibility, or avoid it? Do they support my independence? If your presence makes them weaker, not stronger, that isn't love. That's control dressed as vulnerability. A lot of men confuse being needed with being valued. They're not the same. Being needed can trap you. Being valued sets you free. You are not here to be someone's crutch. You are here to be someone's equal or to walk alone. Helping someone stand is honorable. Carrying someone who refuses to walk will break your back and your spirit. And the moment you stop saving people who don't want to be strong, you finally have the strength to build your own life. Number 6, the one who hates accountability. This person never says, I refuse responsibility. They say things like, life's just unfair. People keep sabotaging me. I had no choice. And if you're a reasonable man, you listen. Because sometimes life is unfair. Sometimes people really do get screwed. But with this person, it's always someone else. Always the system. Always the timing. Always the other guy, never them. Accountability is painful. It means admitting you played a role in your own mess. It means realizing you could have done something differently. For some people, that realization feels unbearable. Because it shatters the illusion that they're good but unlucky, so they build a worldview where responsibility is optional and excuses are sacred. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If nothing is ever their fault, nothing can ever be fixed. When you try to help, you become the enemy. You point out patterns, and they call you judgmental. You suggest ownership, and they say you're not supportive. You ask hard questions, and they shut down or lash out, because accountability threatens their identity. You're not attacking them. You're threatening the story they use to survive. When you threaten the story they tell themselves to feel okay, their natural reaction isn't to change, it's to attack the messenger. Instead of looking inward, they turn outward and point the finger at you. I once tried to help someone like that. Someone who was always almost there, almost successful, almost respected, almost happy. In their story, there was always a villain, a bad boss, a jealous friend, a toxic system. At first I believed them. I thought maybe they truly were a victim of circumstance. But then I noticed something. Every solution they accepted required someone else to change. Never them. And when I calmly asked, what could you have done differently? The mood instantly shifted. Suddenly, I was unsupportive. Suddenly, I was acting superior. That was the moment I realized they didn't want help. They wanted an ally to stand with them against accountability. Some people protect their excuses more fiercely than they protect their future. Because excuses don't demand growth. Accountability does. Helping someone who hates accountability is dangerous because they will pull you into their cycle of blame. And once you're inside it, your standards begin to lower to match theirs. Stagnation slowly becomes normal. You start rationalizing your own delays. You soften principles that used to be clear. You tolerate behavior you once would have corrected or walked away from. Their inability to take responsibility becomes contagious. And one day, you realize you're no longer growing. You're just explaining so you don't lecture. You ask simple questions. What part of this is yours? What are you going to do differently next time? If they dodge, you disengage. Because accountability can't be forced. It has to be chosen. Watch reactions, not words. Do they get defensive when challenged? Do they blame patterns instead of specific behaviors? Do they repeat the same mistakes with new explanations? If the answer is yes, step back. You can't build with someone who refuses to own their bricks. For men, accountability is the foundation. It's how we grow. It's how we earn respect first from ourselves. Anyone who hates accountability will hate your growth because your discipline exposes their excuses. Helping them won't save them. It will slow you down. Sometimes the strongest move isn't empathy. It's standards. And the moment you stop carrying people who refuse responsibility, you finally start moving at your real pace. 7. The comfort prisoner. The comfort prisoner isn't loud. They don't scream about their failures. They don't even complain much. They simply exist. And somehow, that existence feels safe, familiar, comfortable. At first glance, they seem harmless, maybe even wise. They appear to have figured life out in a way that avoids struggle. They don't chase more. They don't take risks. They don't fail spectacularly, but they don't succeed spectacularly either. A flat life, no storms. No peaks. If you're ambitious, driven, and wired to help, you see them as a project. You think, I can help them grow. I can push them past their limits. I can inspire them. But here's the harsh, controversial truth. The comfort prisoner doesn't want to grow. They want to stay exactly where they are. Human beings are hardwired for comfort. Our brains are lazy. Pain is unpleasant. Risk is scary. Growth is exhausting. The comfort prisoner has learned how to cheat life by avoiding all three. They've built invisible walls around themselves, not with bricks, but with excuses. And the moment you try to push them out of that comfort zone, they resist, often subtly. Because comfort isn't just a lifestyle to them. It's their identity. Stepping outside that comfort would demand responsibility, accountability, and courage. More than anything, it would force them to face a hard truth. Life is difficult, and they've been coasting for a long time. That realization is terrifying. So, instead of evolving, they trap themselves inside a bubble where life feels manageable, even if it's painfully mediocre. The comfort prisoner doesn't destroy your energy or ambition by attacking you. They don't need to. They drain it quietly. You spend your time encouraging them, motivating them, offering advice. They nod, they smile. They say, "Yeah, I'll think about it." And then, nothing changes. Meanwhile, something subtle starts happening inside you. You begin questioning your own drive. You start wondering if ambition is dangerous or unnecessary, or maybe even selfish. You begin rationalizing your own procrastination. If they're not stepping up, maybe I don't need to either. Slowly, without realizing it, your growth gets pulled down into their comfort zone. I once had a friend like this. A good guy. Smart, funny, talented, but stuck. Comfortable and stuck. Every time we talked about ambition, goals, or making moves, he'd nod and say, "Yeah, man. I get it. I'll figure it out." Months passed. No action. I started feeling frustrated. Then I started doubting myself. Maybe I'm too intense. Maybe I'm rushing life. Then one day, he said something that snapped me back into clarity. I'm just happy where I'm at. Why stress yourself so much? In that moment, I realized something uncomfortable. He wasn't a partner in growth. He was a mirror for my own potential complacency. And the truth hit hard. Helping him would never work. Not because I was doing it wrong, but because he didn't want to change. Some people love comfort more than they love their potential. They'd rather sit in mediocrity than risk excellence. They'd rather make excuses than take action. They'd rather survive than thrive. Helping them may feel noble, but it's often futile. The comfort prisoner will not grow until they experience discomfort for themselves. And no amount of pushing, nudging, or mentoring can force that moment. So stop trying to save them. You can offer advice once. You can share a roadmap once. You can point to opportunities once. After that, your role changes. You become an observer, not a facilitator. Protect your energy. Protect your ambition. Protect your life from being trapped inside someone else's comfort zone. Sometimes, the most compassionate thing you can do is step away, let them remain comfortable, while you move forward into your own challenges. Ask yourself honestly, do they take steps after advice, or do they just nod? Do they celebrate growth, or quietly avoid it? Are they improving, or simply content with mediocrity? If the answer is clear, stop investing emotional energy. Growth is contagious, but only when both people are willing to get uncomfortable. As men, we're taught to help our friends, stay loyal, and never leave anyone behind. But here's the hard truth. Helping someone stay comfortable at the cost of your own growth is self-betrayal. The comfort prisoner isn't evil. They're human. They're afraid. And fear, no matter how much you care, cannot be carried for someone else. Your ambition, your drive, and your sense of purpose belong to you. They are not communal property. Protect them. Help those who genuinely want to grow. And have the courage to step away from those who don't. Because at the end of the day, your life is far too valuable to be trapped inside someone else's comfort zone. 8. The blame shifter. The blame shifter is like quicksand. Quiet, subtle, slow, and incredibly dangerous for anyone who genuinely wants to help. They never say, "I messed up." Instead, you hear phrases like, "It's not my fault, you don't understand," or "everything just went wrong." And if you're a man with integrity, logic, and a natural instinct to solve problems, your first reaction is to step in, reason things out, and fix what's broken. But here's the uncomfortable, controversial truth. You cannot fix someone who refuses to take responsibility. The blame shifter isn't lazy. They're strategic. Over time, they've learned that if they never admit fault, they never have to change. If they constantly deflect, the world always owes them an explanation. And if someone tries to help and things still fall apart, the blame conveniently lands on you. Helping them is a trap. A slow, polite, emotionally exhausting trap. Some people grow up treating accountability like fire. Maybe they were never taught to own their mistakes. Maybe charm was rewarded more than integrity. Maybe they admitted fault once and got burned, and learned that responsibility feels dangerous. So instead of growing, they perfect the art of deflection. Blame becomes their survival mechanism. And here's the hard truth. It works until it starts destroying the people around them. You try to guide them, and they twist your advice. You try to correct them, and they twist the outcome. You try to hold them accountable, and suddenly, You're the problem. The blame shifter rarely attacks with anger. They attack with narrative. A story where they are always misunderstood, and you are always slightly at fault. Slowly, something changes in you. You start doubting yourself. You question your judgment. You find yourself apologizing for things that were never your responsibility. Over time, your energy drains. Your confidence erodes. Your clarity fades. You're no longer helping. You're defending your own sanity. I once tried to help a friend like this. He was always unlucky. Missed deadlines, failed projects, broken relationships always, someone else's fault. Bad timing, bad bosses, bad luck. Never him. I spent months helping him organize, prioritize, and plan. Every conversation ended with a nod, a smile, and all the right words. Then one day, something went wrong in a situation I had helped him prepare for. He looked at me and said, almost casually, "Yeah, if you hadn't suggested that, none of this would have happened." I froze. Not because he was completely wrong. He wasn't, but because he never once acknowledged his own role. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't helping him. I was being quietly manipulated into carrying blame that was never mine. Some people will never take ownership of their lives. Helping them doesn't heal them. It doesn't make you virtuous. It turns you into a scapegoat. And the more responsible you are, the easier it is for them to use you. So you stop absorbing guilt that isn't yours. You stop endlessly explaining yourself. You start documenting reality not out of paranoia, but because truth matters more than their narrative. You set firm boundaries. You gently confront patterns. And when they still refuse to acknowledge reality, you step back. Because no one who constantly shifts blame will ever respect your energy unless you stop letting them hijack it. Ask yourself honestly, when something goes wrong, do they see their part or only yours? Do they take advice or twist it into criticism of you? Do they grow or simply recycle the same failures with new excuses? If they never own it, it's time to protect yourself first. Blame shifting is dangerous because it slowly steals your sense of truth. Many men are taught that loyalty means carrying other people's weight indefinitely. It doesn't. Loyalty without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. Your integrity is priceless, and helping someone who refuses accountability will eventually cost you that integrity. Some people will never admit fault. Some people will never change. And some will try to pull you down with them when you refuse to carry their burden anymore. Walking away isn't betrayal, it's survival. Because the moment you stop defending the indefensible, you reclaim your energy, your confidence, and your life. 9. The person addicted to chaos. The chaos-addicted person doesn't look dangerous at first. In fact, they look exciting, adventurous, unpredictable. They seem like the kind of person who truly lives life to the fullest. At the beginning, you're drawn to them. You feel more alive around them. Their energy is contagious. Their stories are intense. Their crises feel urgent, almost meaningful. But here's the ugly truth. They aren't exciting. They're addicted. Chaos isn't just a lifestyle for them. It's a drug. And everyone around them becomes collateral damage. Chaos addicts are rarely born that way. Most of the time, it's learned. Maybe they grew up in homes where drama meant attention. Maybe unpredictability was mistaken for love. Maybe they learned early that stability feels boring, while conflict feels alive. Whatever the origin, chaos becomes a habit, a loop. A cycle they repeat without realizing it. And here's the hard part. They don't actually want to escape it. Order, peace, and consistency terrify them. Stability would force them to sit with their fears, their emptiness, their unresolved insecurities without distraction. Chaos gives them purpose, even when it's destructive. Helping them feels noble at first. You believe you can be the anchor, the calm presence in their storm. But you cannot fix someone who is addicted to turbulence. The chaos-addicted person doesn't attack you with malice. They pull you into their storms. Your phone rings at 2 a.m. because something happened. Your day gets derailed because they need you to solve a problem that could have been avoided. Your emotional energy drains because everything is dramatic, urgent, and somehow always about them. Slowly, patterns emerge. Crises never end. Nothing is ever simple. Your advice is never enough. You try setting boundaries, they push harder. You create distance, they escalate. And without noticing it at first, your patience erodes. Helping them doesn't save them. It turns you into a permanent firefighter for a life that never stops. Burning. I once had a friend like this. Fun, charismatic, intense. At first, I loved it. He made life feel thrilling. His stories made my own routine seem dull. He was magnetic. But then the pattern revealed itself. Every week brought new drama. Conflicts with friends, family emergencies, job crises, explosive relationships. He called, he texted, he leaned on me constantly. I began rearranging my life around his chaos, convincing myself I was helping him grow or get his life together. Months later, I realized the truth. I was exhausted, drained, walking on eggshells. Not because I was weak, but because I was living inside someone else's storm. And that's when I understood. Chaos doesn't need your help. It needs boundaries. And the worst part was this. None of it mattered. The chaos kept coming. Nothing changed. He hadn't learned a single thing. One day, after a particularly ridiculous crisis, I finally snapped and said, "Do you even want peace, or do you just enjoy living in turmoil?" He stared at me, genuinely confused, as if I were the unreasonable one. And in that moment, it became clear. He wasn't broken. He was comfortable in destruction. Helping him was never going to work because he didn't want it to stop. Some people are addicted to chaos, and you cannot cure that addiction with logic, love, or effort. Trying to stabilize someone like that will cost you your energy, your focus, and eventually, your sanity. Many men stay because they believe loyalty means enduring endless storms. But there's a difference between loyalty and becoming an emotional punching bag for someone else's addiction. Loyalty has limits. Self-respect has boundaries. Step 1 is recognizing the pattern. Step 2 is setting firm, non-negotiable boundaries. Stop responding to emergencies that aren't yours. Stop taking ownership of crises you didn't create. Stop rearranging your life around someone else's drama. Step 3 is stepping back when those boundaries are ignored. You can't change them. You can't rescue them. But you can protect yourself. Ask yourself honestly, when I interact with this person, do I feel energized or drained? Does helping them lead to real solutions, or does it just create more chaos? Am I growing around them, or am I merely surviving? If the answer isn't growth, it's time to step away. Growth cannot exist inside a permanent storm. Many men confuse being needed with being respected. They're not the same. Helping someone addicted to chaos doesn't build character. It builds resentment, burnout, and stagnation. Some people need to face the consequences of their own turbulence. And the moment you stop enabling it, you reclaim your time, your energy, and your life. You begin to understand that peace is not a luxury. It's a requirement, a non-negotiable foundation for growth, success, and real fulfillment. No one, no matter how exciting or entertaining, has the right to steal your clarity or drain your ambition for the sake of their chaos. 10. The validation junkie. The validation junkie doesn't appear aggressive or malicious. In fact, they often seem humble, even insecure. They downplay their achievements. They constantly ask for opinions, reassurance, and compliments. At first, you think, I can help this person feel confident. I can lift them up. I can be the one who finally helps them see their worth. But here's the brutal truth. The validation junkie doesn't want confidence. They want constant approval. They don't crave growth. They crave reinforcement. Your time, your energy, your praise slowly become their lifeline. And the addiction is subtle, almost invisible at first. Validation addiction usually grows out of insecurity. Some people were raised in environments where love was conditional. Some were praised only for performance, never for who they were. Others learned early that seeking approval made life feel safer. Over time, needing validation becomes a habit, a default way of existing. It feels comfortable, predictable, and here's the cruel twist. It doesn't just affect them. It quietly spreads to the people around them. When you are constantly giving reassurance, your own energy, focus, and confidence slowly begin to bend around their needs. Almost without noticing, you start questioning yourself. Am I doing enough? Am I saying the right thing? Do they still approve of me? And while you're stuck in that loop, the validation junkie's life remains exactly the same. They never truly develop self-worth because they don't have to. Someone else is always supplying it for them. The validation junkie doesn't drain you through anger or cruelty. They drain you through subtle dependency. Every achievement you celebrate together reinforces their reliance on you. Every reassurance you offer teaches them they never need to self. Every time you try to set a boundary, they panic, guilt-trip you, or withdraw emotionally. Slowly, you begin structuring your own life around their moods and constant need for affirmation. Your energy is no longer yours. It belongs to someone who cannot stand on their own. Helping them doesn't elevate them. It ties you to their emotional instability. I once had a close friend who was intelligent, talented, and genuinely kind, but deeply addicted to validation. Every decision required feedback. Every success needed praise. Every failure demanded comfort. At first, I enjoyed it. I felt useful. I felt important. I told myself he was just insecure, that with enough encouragement, I could help him grow. Months passed, and something became clear. The more support I gave, the more dependent he became. He relied on me more, not less. One day, after he completely botched an important meeting, he called me. Not to talk about solutions, not to reflect, just to vent and receive reassurance. I paused, and it finally hit me. I wasn't helping him. I was becoming a crutch, someone he couldn't function without. That's when I understood the truth. He didn't need support. He needed me to feed his addiction. Helping him sounded noble in theory, but in reality, it was a trap. And the longer I stayed, the more it drained my own sense of self. The validation junkie isn't evil. They're insecure. They're human. But constantly feeding someone's need for validation doesn't make them stronger. It makes you weaker. No amount of reassurance can replace the moment they must face themselves, and no amount of your energy can give them genuine self-worth. Some people need one of the hardest lessons there is: learning how to stand alone, stop over-investing in their self-esteem, offer guidance, not endless reinforcement, celebrate their wins, but don't babysit their emotions, encourage independence, and step back when they resist it. Your energy is finite, and no one has the right to siphon it endlessly. Ask yourself, are they growing, or are they simply leaning on you for emotional fuel? Does their confidence improve when you step back, or do they panic? Are they learning self-reliance or maintaining dependency? If the answer is dependency, it's time to adjust your boundaries. Many men believe loyalty means endless emotional labor. It doesn't. Helping someone build self-esteem is honorable. Carrying someone else's self-esteem is destructive. The validation junkie can never repay you because their dependency keeps them trapped. Walking away isn't cruelty, it's wisdom. Because the moment you stop feeding someone else's addiction, you reclaim your energy, your confidence, and your life. And that level of self-respect is something no external validation could ever replace. 11. The jealous dependent. The jealous dependent is deceptively difficult to recognize. They appear loyal. They seem supportive. They act like a friend, a partner, or a colleague who wants the best for you. But here's where the problem begins. They can't handle you becoming better than them. And yet, at the same time, they can't survive without you. It's a toxic cocktail. Dependence and envy, wrapped in the mask of care and concern. And if you are ambitious, empathetic, or genuinely want to help others, this kind of person will quietly drain you, little by little, before you even realize what's happening. At the core of the jealous dependent is deep insecurity. They don't trust their own abilities, so they rely on others for emotional support, and sometimes even financial stability. But dependence breeds envy. Every time you succeed, it doesn't inspire them. It reminds them of everything they feel they lack. Every step you take forward makes them feel left behind, even though they still need you to stay afloat. They've created a paradoxical identity. They want you close, but not ahead. They crave your help, yet resent any growth that isn't reflected in their own life. That's why helping them becomes a trap. Your progress triggers their jealousy, while your absence threatens their fragile sense of stability. The jealous dependent doesn't explode. They simmer quietly, slowly, like a fire that burns beneath the surface. In public, they cheer for you. In private, they slip in passive-aggressive remarks. They accept your advice, only to weaken it with friendly doubts or subtle criticism. They rely on your support, but quietly punish your success with resentment. Over time, patterns begin to emerge. Your wins start to feel uncomfortable around them. Your growth feels like a threat, and your presence turns into a source of guilt rather than joy. The more you try to help, the more tangled the relationship becomes. You can't pull away without them collapsing, and you can't stay without being resented. I once had a friend, let's call him Mark. Mark was smart, capable, and funny, but deeply dependent on my support. He leaned on me for networking, career advice, and emotional guidance. At first, it felt good. I believed I was helping a friend who simply needed direction. But then his jealousy began to surface. Every time I landed a new opportunity or completed a project, he made jokes about how it was easier for me, how luck played a role, how maybe I didn't really deserve it, when I started ignoring those subtle digs and focusing on my own life. His dependence shifted into passive sabotage. He questioned my decisions, quietly undermined my confidence, or withdrew affection to make me feel guilty. It was exhausting, and that's when I realized Mark didn't want help. He wanted control. Control over my energy, my attention, and my sense of self-worth. Worse still, he resented me for existing in a better place than him, while still needing me at the same time. I had to step back. That wasn't betrayal. It was self-preservation. Some people are comfortable living in your shadow. They will take everything you offer, guidance, energy, time, but resent your growth because it reflects their own stagnation. Helping a jealous dependent is dangerous because they turn your progress into a moral dilemma. You begin to question your own ambition. Am I selfish for improving my life? Am I abandoning them by moving ahead? And slowly, just to keep the peace, you start shrinking yourself down to their level. The first step is acknowledging the pattern. Once you recognize the dangerous pattern, the next step is no longer emotional. It becomes a conscious decision. Step 2. Set boundaries. Continue to offer support, but do not overextend yourself. Celebrate their achievements, but never apologize for your own progress. Encourage growth, but allow them to face the consequences of inaction. You cannot live someone else's life for them. Step 3. Accept an uncomfortable truth. Not everyone is capable of handling your success. You can only help those who are willing to take responsibility for their own lives. Everyone else will cling, resent, and quietly try to pull you down so they don't have to look up at you. Ask yourself a few simple but honest questions. Are they truly growing, or are they becoming more dependent on you? Do they celebrate your wins without bitterness or hidden resentment? Or are you constantly adjusting your behavior, your words, even your ambitions, just to protect their fragile ego? If the answers reveal a repeated pattern of jealousy and dependency, step back, not to punish them, but to protect your growth, your energy, and your sanity. Many men believe loyalty means tolerating envy and dependence. It doesn't. Some people will never celebrate your progress. Some will only accept your help if you stay beneath them. Helping people like that doesn't lift them up. It drags you down. Walking away isn't cruelty. It's a declaration that your life and your growth are non-negotiable. Because the moment you stop sacrificing yourself for someone who resents your success, you reclaim your ambition, your energy, and your future. And that is freedom. No amount of loyalty can replace that. 12. The energy vampire. The energy vampire isn't loud. They don't always fight, argue, or demand. They simply exist in a way that leaves you drained. You know them. The person who calls when they're stressed and never truly recovers. The one whose mood controls yours. The one whose problems multiply when you try to solve them. And whose presence feels heavier the longer you're around. At first you might think, I can help them. I can support them. I can lift them up. But here's the uncomfortable truth. They don't want help. They want your energy. Energy vampires thrive on emotional parasitism. Often, this begins early in life. Some people grow up in environments where attention is scarce, and they learn that survival means absorbing energy from others. Some are raised without emotional boundaries or self-regulation, so they outsource those skills to anyone willing to listen. Over time, it becomes a habit, a subconscious addiction, and like any addiction, it doesn't care about your well-being. It only cares about being fed. The energy vampire isn't necessarily cruel. Often, they're unaware of what they're doing, but their lack of emotional boundaries makes them one of the most dangerous people to help. They don't attack with malice. They drain your vitality slowly. You leave conversations feeling exhausted, even when nothing dramatic happened. You begin rearranging your life around their emotional storms. Your own problems start to feel secondary, because theirs dominate every interaction. The longer you stay, the more subtle it becomes. Your energy fades. Your focus fades. Your joy fades. And the worst part is, you often blame yourself, thinking you're not doing enough to help. But the truth is this: helping them doesn't improve their life. It weakens yours. I once had a friend, let's call him Alex. On paper, Alex was funny, charming, and kind. But every interaction left me exhausted. At first I thought it was temporary. He was going through a hard time. I wanted to support him. I told myself, this is friendship. I help. He recovers. But months passed, and patterns emerged. Every conversation revolved around his stress, his fears, and his frustrations. After a long time of trying, I finally realized something I could no longer avoid. No matter how much advice I gave, no real action ever followed. And the moment I tried to refocus on my own life, he immediately became needy, resentful, or started guilt-tripping me. That was when a harsh truth hit me. I wasn't helping Alex at all. I was just a power source, a battery he could drain whenever he wanted. And the more I gave, the more he took. The turning point was painful, but necessary. I finally said, Alex, I can't live your life for you. You have to find your own strength. He was angry, confused, even hurt. But I understood something important. The discomfort of autonomy was exactly why he relied so heavily on others. An energy vampire can never be fixed by your help. Your effort does not cure their dependency. Your time does not give them independence. Your energy does not replace the personal growth they refuse to face. The moment you try, you become complicit in your own depletion. Some people don't need friends, mentors, or support. They need someone to carry them, and that someone should not be you. Step 1. Recognize the drain. Do interactions with them leave you exhausted? Do you feel obligated to constantly uplift them? Do you avoid setting boundaries because you fear conflict? Step 2. Set firm boundaries. Limit your availability. Refuse to absorb emotional storms that aren't yours. Encourage autonomy instead of dependence. Step 3. Step back when boundaries are ignored. Energy vampires respect only the structure of your limits, not your advice or goodwill. Ask yourself, is this relationship mutual or parasitic? Am I growing or just surviving around them? Does their presence elevate me or drain me? If the answer is drain, it's time to protect your energy, not fix theirs. A lot of men feel trapped by loyalty, compassion, or obligation. But here's the truth. Your energy is your most valuable currency. Helping someone at the cost of your vitality is not noble. It's self-sabotage. The moment you stop enabling an energy vampire, you reclaim clarity, focus, and momentum. And that's when real growth begins for you. Not for someone who refuses to do the work themselves. Because in life, men who give their energy to others first, without boundaries, end up empty, frustrated, and stagnant. Now listen closely. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You've just looked into some of the darkest corners of human behavior, and you probably feel a mix of relief, anger, and maybe a little guilt forever letting some of these people into your life. Here's the cold, hard truth. Not everyone deserves your energy, your time, or your loyalty. And no matter how good your intentions are, helping someone who refuses to grow, refuses to own their mistakes, or refuses to respect your boundaries does not make you noble. It makes you a target. Some people will manipulate you. Some will guilt trip you. Some will quietly drain your ambition while smiling to your face. And some will resent your growth because it highlights their own stagnation. The lesson is clear. Stop trying to fix people who don't want to change. Stop bending your life around the chaos, blame, or insecurity of others. After everything we've talked about, there's one thing that needs to be said clearly, without avoidance. It's time to stop sacrificing your energy just to keep someone else comfortable. That isn't cruelty. It's survival. And it's necessary if you truly want to live a life that matters. Not just exist day to day. Because here's the deeper message you need to hear, even if it's uncomfortable. This life is yours. Your growth, your energy, your ambition, these are not bargaining chips. They are non-negotiable. The world does not owe anyone your time. And you do not owe anyone the right to drag you down with them. Not everyone who enters your life deserves to stay for the long journey. So take a hard, honest look at the people around you. Who is quietly competing with you? Who is addicted to trauma and chaos? Who survives on validation? And who, even without bad intentions, is constantly draining your energy? Name them in your mind, not to judge, but to become aware. Then do the most important thing. Protect your energy, protect your peace, and intentionally surround yourself with people who make you stronger, clearer, and more forward-moving, not people who leave you heavy, exhausted, and constantly explaining your own growth. In the end, your future is far too valuable to spend carrying the weight of people who refuse to grow. You were not born to be the support system for someone else's stagnation. And if this video hit you, if it forced you to re-examine relationships you've been quietly justifying, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs a real wake-up call. Because sometimes, the harshest truths are the ones that save us from wasting our entire lives.